Good morning, class. Welcome to Jesus Time today. It is a Tuesday, which means that we are going to take out our Bible and read from our Bible today. Let's begin with our Jesus Time rhyme. This is my Bible. I open it wide and learn about Jesus from the words inside. Do you remember our Bible passage this week? Psalm 56 verses 3 and 4. When I am afraid, I will trust in you, in God whose word I praise. And we can sing that together too, like we have been doing. When I am afraid, I will trust in you. I will trust in you. I will trust in you. When I am afraid, I will trust in you. In God whose word I praise. And we're going to hear about the Israelites trusting in God when they were in the land of Egypt. Now we've been reading about the Beasties in Egypt, and when we flip to the back of our book, we see that these words in here came from Exodus chapter 3 and then chapters 7 to 12. So we're going to jump around a little bit in our reading today. We're not going to read all of that. It would be a lot to read together, but you sure could read through that at home with mom and dad with their Bible. So Exodus comes after Genesis. So Genesis talks about creation, and we heard about Joseph in Genesis, and now we're talking about Exodus, and this is a man named Moses we get to hear about. So we're going to start with chapter 3, where God is actually talking to Moses, and this is what he has to say about the Israelites, his people that are living in Egypt. The Lord said, I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I have heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I am concerned about their suffering. So I have come down to rescue them from the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of that land into a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey, the home of the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. And now the cry of the Israelites has reached me, and I have seen the way the Egyptians are oppressing them. And that means treating them not kindly. So now go, I am sending you, Moses, to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. So Moses was God's chosen leader. He was the man for the job. And this was the same Moses that was the baby that got drawn out of the Nile River. He was in the basket. His mom and dad kept him safe when he was a baby, and when he got a little bit too older, they had to put him in a basket in the Nile River. Then the Pharaoh's daughter saved him, and then he was raised as the Pharaoh's daughter's son before he became a man, and then realized that he was an Israelite, and he really wanted to be part of the Israelite family, not part of the Egyptian family. And that's how God made Moses the leader. So Moses was God's leader. He did it well, but it was hard for him. He talked, some of the chapters that we're not reading talk about how nervous Moses was, and he didn't feel like he would be a good leader, but God had a plan for him, and God knew that he could do it because God was going to be with him to strengthen him along the way and give him helpers. So we're going to jump to the end of the plagues. We're not going to read through all the plagues. We're going to go all the way to chapter 12 now and read just the verses about Pharaoh finally agreeing to let the Egyptians, not the Egyptians, Pharaoh finally agreeing to let the Israelites get out of Egypt. During the night, Pharaoh, that was the king of Egypt, summoned Moses and Aaron and said, Up, leave my people, you and the Israelites. Go worship the Lord as you have requested. Take your flocks and herds as you have said, and go, and also bless me. So finally, after all 10 of the plagues, all 10 of those sad and maybe scary and painful things that happened, The Pharaoh was finally ready to let the Israelites go free and not be their slaves anymore. But it took a lot of time for that to happen. And I'm going to jump now to a little bit later in chapter 12 to see how long the Israelites were in Egypt. Now, the length of time the Israelite people lived in Egypt was 430 years. At the end of the 430 years, to the very day, all the Lord's divisions, all the Lord's people left Egypt. That's a long time to be there. Do we remember how they got to Egypt? We talked about that last week. Last week we talked about Joseph, whose brothers told him to go away, and then he ended up in Egypt. And then he became an important man in Egypt, and then when everybody ran out of food, they all had to come to Egypt to get food. That's how Israelites got to Egypt, was 430 years before Moses. They got there because they needed the food, but then they stayed there, and the longer they were there, the worse the Egyptians treated them. And finally, it was the right time for them to be free, the right time for them to move to a new land where God would take care of them and provide for them. We don't know why it took that long. We don't know why God let them be there for 430 years, but we do know that God's plans are always good. And we know when we read further that he took care of the Israelites after they left Egypt too. That made me think of a song that we know very well, and I would love to sing My God is So Great with you before we say goodbye for the day. My God is so great, so strong and so mighty, there's nothing my God cannot do. My God is so great, so strong and so mighty, there's nothing my God cannot do. The mountains are his, the rivers are his, the stars are his handiwork too. My God is so great, so strong and so mighty, there's nothing my God cannot do. My God loves me so, his love is so mighty, he gave his son Jesus for me. My God loves me so, his love is so mighty, he gave his son Jesus for me. He died for my sins, he rose from the grave, he'll come back in glory for me. My God loves me so, his love is so mighty, he gave his son Jesus for me. Thanks for joining me today for Jesus Time. I will see you tomorrow. God bless your day.